You are not afraid of aging and death the way you are afraid of a dog or a dark street. Those fears arrive, peak, and pass. This fear sits underneath ordinary life as a low-grade hum, surfacing when you catch your face in the mirror at the wrong angle, when a parent's health declines, when you do the arithmetic on how many years remain. It is the background condition. Every human being who has ever lived has carried some version of this same weight. Old age has been compared to a ferocious tigress, more ferocious than even a tiger, because a tiger may or may not cross your path, but this one is already tracking you, and the outcome is not in doubt. Nobody gets out. This condition is not the acknowledgement that the body will stop functioning one day. It is something more pervasive, a chronic sense of insecurity, a restlessness that no amount of security can fully settle, a subtle grief attached to pleasure because pleasure passes, a background anxiety about loss that colors even comfortable moments. This entire package, the fear, the insecurity, the grief, the desperate clinging to what cannot be held, is what the tradition calls samsara. It means the chronic condition of becoming, where nothing stays, where the next threat is always forming, where the self feels at risk. Embedded within samsara is something more specific, abhinavesha, the instinctive, irrational clinging to life. You cannot argue yourself out of it by noting that death is natural or statistically inevitable. It runs deeper than argument. An insect, when threatened, scrambles to survive. So does a human being. But a human being also lies awake at 3 in the morning extrapolating that instinct forward, rehearsing a loss that has not yet arrived. The fear is not merely reactive. It is anticipatory. It is built into how we relate to the very fact of being alive. Vedanta does not dismiss this. A man walking at twilight sees a coiled shape on the path and screams. His heart rate, his adrenaline, his frozen posture, all real. But the snake is not. The fear does not prove the snake exists. It only proves he is looking at something and misidentifying it. The misidentification is the problem. The fear of aging and death is not a character flaw. It is a symptom of a specific misunderstanding about who is aging and who is going to die. There is a precise error at the source of this fear, a specific, identifiable mistake in the claim you make about yourself every day. The claim is, I am the body. You do not say it out loud, but every time you say, I am aging, I am getting weaker, I will die, you are making exactly this claim. Swami Paramarthananda identifies the corrected language with surgical precision. The right statement is, the body is aging, the body is getting weaker, the body will die. The shift from I am to the body is not a grammatical nicety. It is the entire problem, located and named. This error has a Sanskrit term, adhyasa, superimposition, the wrong transference of attributes from one thing onto another. You take the properties of the body, its capacity to decay, its vulnerability to disease, its biological guarantee of ending, and transfer all of them onto the I. The body is mortal. That is its nature. But the I absorbs this mortality through adhyasa, and now believes it too is mortal, decaying, and headed for annihilation. Swami Dayananda names this transfer plainly. In I am mortal, the I am is fine. But mortal is an erroneous conclusion, and that conclusion is the basis for the fear of death. This confusion is so ordinary that it feels like simple truth rather than error. When you look at your body and see it changing, thinning, slowing, there is an instinctive conclusion. That is happening to me. The moment it becomes me, the fear follows with complete logical necessity. A mortal body cannot help but fear its own end. But the question adhyasa forces is, who made the body into a me? Because if the transfer was made, it can be examined. And if it can be examined, it can be undone. A man walking at twilight sees a coiled shape on the path and recoils in terror. His fear is completely real, vivid, physical, urgent. But there is only a rope. You cannot beat the fear out of him with a stick, because the problem is not in the rope. The problem is in what he took the rope to be. Only clear seeing dissolves the fear, because it dissolves the snake. The snake was never there to be killed. The mortal self that fears aging and death is the snake in this illustration. The fear it generates is genuine. But adhyasa is the twilight, the obscured vision that made a rope look like something lethal. The rope, your actual nature, was never threatened. The threat was always a case of mistaken identity. When this error hardens into a fixed identity, I am this body, this face, this particular physical existence, it becomes what the tradition calls dehabhimana, identification with the body as the self. Once this identification is in place, everything follows. Every gray hair is a wound. Every illness is a warning of the end. Every death of someone else is a rehearsal for your own. The body's mortality, which is its natural biological character, becomes your mortality, and you spend your life trying to outrun it. But dehabhimana is a transferred error, not a discovered truth. You have concluded, through adhyasa, that because the body is mortal, you are mortal. That conclusion is what needs to be examined, because the question of what exactly is doing the fearing, and whether it is the same thing as what is aging, has not yet been asked. When you take yourself to be the body, you are no longer a vast, borderless awareness. You are a small and located object, a specific arrangement of flesh and bone sitting inside an enormous, indifferent universe. That universe contains viruses, accidents, other people, time itself. Every one of them can damage or destroy the object you now believe yourself to be. A finite object in an infinite environment is, by definition, at risk. The Upanishads name this with precision. Dvitiyad vai payam bhavati. Fear arises only from a second entity. The sentence is diagnostic, not poetic. Fear is the outcome of perceiving a second thing, something other than you, something that has the power to threaten you. The moment you identify as the body, the rest of existence becomes that second thing. And there is an awful lot of it. This is why the fear is chronic, not occasional. You can address specific threats, install a security system, buy insurance, take vitamins, but you cannot address the source, which is the sheer fact of being a finite object in an environment that will outlast you. Every precaution taken proves the point. You are trying to secure something that is, by its nature, to some, insecure. The project cannot succeed. A silkworm produces silk thread from its own body. It wraps this thread around itself layer by layer, building what looks like a protective fortress. The thread is real. The effort is genuine. But the cocoon becomes the tomb. The very material meant to ensure survival seals it in. The silkworm is doing exactly what its instinct dictates. The instinct is misdirected. No amount of silk resolves the underlying vulnerability. It only adds more walls to a prison that was always there. Human beings do the same. Wealth, medicine, reputation, legacy, all of it is silk. Each layer is produced from the belief, I am this body, and I must protect it. And each layer tightens the identification, making it harder to question whether the premise was correct. The person who has invested most heavily in protecting the body is often the most terrified of losing it. The protection does not reduce the fear. It deepens the conviction that there is something here worth protecting, and therefore something here that can be lost. This is what samsara names, not a cosmological spinning wheel, but the lived experience of chronic insecurity that has no exit from within its own logic. As long as I am the body stands, the fear of what happens to the body is not only reasonable, it is unavoidable. The body is not what you are. It is what you have, and only for a fixed term. The physical body, what Vedanta calls sharira, that which is subject to disintegration, or deha, that which is subject to cremation, is a material object. As a material object, it follows the laws that govern all material objects. Every material form passes through 6 modifications, called shad vichara. It comes into existence, is born, grows, matures, declines, and dies. A seed, a mountain, a star, and a human body all follow this exact sequence without exception. The body does not decay because something has gone wrong with yours. It decays because decay is written into its definition. Jara, old age, the process of apakshaya, of changing toward a lesser state, is not an affliction that arrives from outside. It is built into the architecture of the form itself. We treat aging as an intrusion, an injury done to us, when it is the body doing what a body does. Swami Paramarthananda puts it plainly, the body's decay is a tax paid for having a body at all. The tax is not levied because you did something wrong. It is levied because you occupy a form that is, by nature, time-bound. Consider the analogy of a rented office. You move in, you work there, and the lease runs for a duration determined by prarabdha, the portion of karma that governs this particular life. When the lease expires, eviction is not punishment. It is the end of the agreed term. The tenant and the building are two different things. When the building comes down, the resident walks out. An actor puts on a costume for a role. The costume fits the character, serves a specific dramatic purpose, and when the play ends, the actor removes it. A worn-out costume is not the actor's death. It is the completion of a performance. The body is that costume, a temporary instrument assembled for a specific purpose and duration. You cannot make it immortal not because medical science has not yet advanced far enough, but because immortality is not the body's nature. Mortality is. The goal is not to make the instrument last forever. The goal is to correctly understand who is holding the candle. Death is not annihilation. It is the first moment of posterior non-existence of a particular form. That definition does not include the non-existence of the one who was using the form. When a house is demolished, we do not say the family that lived there has been demolished. We say they have moved. The confusion arises only when we mistake the house for the family, when Deha and the one who indwells it are taken to be the same thing. This is exactly the confusion Dehabhimana creates. It collapses the distinction between the dwelling and the dweller, so that when the dwelling shows signs of wear, the dweller panics. The wrinkles on the face feel like wounds to the self. The slowing of the body feels like personal diminishment. The eventual end of the body feels like personal annihilation. None of that follows. Once the distinction is clear, the body is aging. That is what bodies do. The question that now opens is, who is the one noticing it? The body is not the experiencer of aging. It is what is being experienced. Something in you registers the gray hair, the slower recovery, the lines around the eyes. That registering, the bare fact of noticing, is not itself gray or slower lined. It does not age as it watches aging happen. You have been so focused on what is being observed that you have missed the observer entirely. The moment you turn attention toward what is doing the noticing, you find something that has not moved. This is what Vedanta calls the Sakshi, the witness. Swami Paramarthananda defines it precisely. The witness is the consciousness that registers the presence and absence of other things. It is the constant in every experience. Your childhood body is gone. Your teenage mind is gone. Decades of thoughts, moods, and physical states have appeared and dissolved. What has remained across all of it is the simple fact of awareness, the knowing that these things occurred. That knowing is not a product of the body. The body cannot know itself. It requires something else to illuminate it. That something else is the Atma, your true self. Here the distinction between karyam and karanam becomes essential. Karyam means an effect, a product, something manufactured out of prior material. Everything manufactured has a lifespan determined by the material it is made from. The body is karyam, assembled from physical matter, subject to all the laws that govern physical matter, including the law that it will eventually disintegrate. The consciousness that illuminates the body cannot be a product, because it is what makes the awareness of any product possible in the first place. It is the karanam, the underlying cause, the prior principle, and the cause is not destroyed when its effects dissolve. When you observe your body changing, when you notice, even with some sadness, that the face in the mirror is older, there are two things happening. There is the observed, the body, the reflection, the sensation of time's passage. And there is the observer, the awareness in which all of this appears. The observed is mortal. The observer has never aged by a single day, because aging is a modification that happens in time. And the observer is what time itself appears within. Swami Dayananda puts it directly. Consciousness exists in all three periods of time: past, present, and future, not as something that travels through time, but as that in which time appears. Any concept of was or will be is itself a thought appearing in consciousness. You can only know the past because you are present to remember it. You can only anticipate the future because you are present to imagine it. Consciousness is not inside time. Time is inside consciousness. The dehi, the indweller, is this consciousness. The word means the one whose presence makes the body a live body rather than a corpse. The difference between a living body and a dead one is not the presence or absence of organs. A corpse has all the same organs. The difference is the presence or absence of the dehi, the conscious witness. This dehi is not generated by the body, does not depend on the body's continued function, and is not taken down when the body is taken down. Think of a movie screen. Every film that plays on it, however violent, however dark, however full of death and destruction, leaves the screen itself completely unmarked. When the projector stops, the screen is exactly as it was before the first frame ran. The Atma is that screen. Bodies appear on it, live their entire arc, and dissolve. The awareness in which all of this occurs remains untouched. The Satchidananda Atma, consciousness that is existence in fullness, is the background in which the entire universe, including every body in it, appears and disappears. Your body is one frame in an infinite film. You are the screen. What the Sakshi sees, it is not changed by. What it illuminates, it does not become. You have witnessed decades of changes in this body and mind without becoming those changes. That capacity to witness without being altered is not a skill you developed. It is what you already are. The fear of aging assumes that the one who fears will be destroyed by what it fears. The witness cannot be destroyed by what it observes. The fear of aging does not require a cure. It requires a correction, not of the body, but of the sentence, I am the body. Every fear traced here leads back to one move, taking the word I to refer to the physical form. The body is a karyam, an effect, a product, assembled from matter, subject to the sixfold modifications, tending toward dissolution by its very nature. When you say I am aging, you have placed the I inside that product. Since the product decays, the I now decays with it. Since the product will end, the I now dreads its end. Given the identification, that fear is the only logical conclusion. The correction is not to suppress the fear or distract from it. It is to examine whether the identification itself is accurate. That same awareness was present when you were 10 years old, watching your childhood body run and fall. It was present when your body was ill, observing the fever. It was present this morning when you noticed, with a familiar unease, that the face in the mirror looks older than it did a decade ago. The body in the mirror changed. The one noticing the change did not. The noticing itself, the sheer fact of awareness, has no wrinkles. If you were truly identical to the changing body, you could not stand apart from it, even for a moment, to observe its changes. The very act of perceiving aging proves you are not what is aging. The one who says my body is decaying is not decaying. The my already places the body at a distance. Swami Paramarthananda states the reversal precisely. The error is I am a mortal body that has a soul. The correction is I am the immortal awareness in which this body has appeared. These are not two philosophical opinions. One is a superimposition, adhyasa, the false transfer of the body's mortality onto the changeless self. The other is the recognition of what was always the case. A wave believes it is a wave. It has a shape, a height, a particular character. It travels, it builds, and then it crashes. From the wave's view, crashing is annihilation, but the wave is not a separate entity that happens to be made of water. It is water, holding a shape for a time. When the shape dissolves at the shore, the water does not cease. As long as the wave insists on its identity as a wave, the crash is terrifying. The moment it recognizes itself as water, the crash is a return. You are not the wave that is aging. You are the water wearing the wave's shape for a period determined by prarabdha karma, the particular conditions that gave rise to this body. The body is the shape. The Atma is the water. When this shape resolves, the water remains. It was never in danger. What drops away with this recognition is not only the fear of death, it is the chronic, low-level insecurity of samsara, the exhausting project of trying to keep the wave from crashing. The entire architecture of that insecurity was built on one misread sentence. I am this form. Correct the sentence, and the architecture has no foundation left. This correction is not passive resignation to aging. It is the only position from which aging can be met without terror. The body's journey, its growth, its decline, its eventual end, is watched clearly, managed well, and released, because the one watching knows they are not the thing being released.